I'm Kelly, and I'm here to answer your vegetable gardening questions in our social series called Dig It. Y'all had a lot of great questions last time, so let's just dig in. Lulu asked a question about cilantro and parsley. She said, both my cilantro and parsley came back from last year, but they look like they're starting to bloom. What should I do? Both parsley and cilantro are biennials, which means it takes 2 years for them to complete their life cycle. In the first year that you're growing them, they produce a lot of leaves that you can harvest. In the second year, they come back and quickly start getting ready to produce seed. The plants stretch taller and start to flower. You don't get as many leaves to harvest in that second year, but the flowers are really helpful in the garden because they attract lots of beneficial insects, including some that are natural predators for some garden pests. And if you leave them all the way to producing seed, you can harvest that seed to grow from next time, or in the case of cilantro, you harvest the seed and that's actually the spice coriander that you use in your kitchen. The question we've seen a lot of searches for on HGTV.com. How far apart should you plant your tomatoes? Generally, tomatoes should be planted 18 to 24 inches apart. This gives them plenty of room to spread and not get crowded, which can cause issues with diseases and pests. But there are many different varieties of tomatoes and some can be planted more closely together. If you're growing a variety labeled as compact, you can probably plant the tomatoes more like 12 to 18 inches apart. If you're growing in a container, it's best to plant 1 tomato per container. When you plant your tomatoes, be sure to add your stake or cage at planting time. You don't want to add those later because you could damage the plant roots. Now Kelly has a question about snap peas. She says, what kind of trellis do you use to grow your peas? I've tried a lot of different trellises for growing peas, and I don't really have a favorite, but I'll tell you what I'm using this year. For a few years I grew on willow trellises, which are really pretty, but they only lasted a few seasons. So this year I'm growing on a trellis made out of concrete reinforcement wire and metal stakes, and it looks really good. Peas are vines, so they really need a trellis or string to grow up. The blooms are really beautiful and then they develop into peas. This year I'm growing a purple variety called Sugar Magnolia. The flowers are bright lavender and the pea pods are a really deep striking purple color. Now I'm going to tell you something a little bit embarrassing. This is how obsessed with gardening I am. For Christmas I asked my husband for drip irrigation as my gift. Since most of my garden is not straight lines or rows, we went with a flexible drip tubing kit. At intervals, we attached side tubes to extend out to the plants. Drip irrigation is a good idea for vegetable plants because it waters at the soil level. You don't want to water your plants overhead, which will keep leaves wet and promote disease problems. You can also set the drip irrigation on a timer to water regularly, which is especially helpful when you're on vacation. Okay, that's it for this episode of Dig It. What other vegetable gardening questions do you have? Leave them down below in the comments and I may answer your question next time. Happy gardening!